is going on? My name is Michael Hacker, and this is the Hacker Outdoors podcast. This is episode number 3 with my next guest, Scott Chesney. Scott is the father of 2 beautiful children, a husband, a motivational speaker, life coach, ambassador for the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation, a member of the Seton University Leadership Advisory Council, and star of the documentary Ride the Wave, a captivating film about hope, resilience, courage, passion, gratitude, family, friends, and love. It really is a laundry list of accolades and achievements that hopefully makes you realize that you can and should be doing more regardless of your life circumstances. So without further ado, I introduce to you Mr. Scott Chesney. Scott, welcome to the Hacker Outdoors podcast.
Thank you so much, Michael. Such an honor and a pleasure to be with you today.
Thank you. It means a lot having you here today. And, I've known you for quite some time now. And, I have to say, you're a hell of a man and a great role model, right? Like, I think my first introduction to you was, there was men's night at St. Catherine's Church in Cedar Grove. And my brother had known you through the surf group, and I had yet to meet you at that point. And listen to you talk, and you got in front of this room of, this Catholic church. And I text my brother and I said, I think the guy Scott that you're friends with is here doing a talk to the men's group. And your discussion with us really resonated with me. And, I wanted to give you a chance to kind of talk a little bit about your background. Before we dive in, we're going to kind of jump into a little bit of surfing here and some other things with Scott. But, do you want to give a little background to yourself, Scott?
Sure. Thank you so much, though, Michael. It's, again, honor to be here. But I remember that day back in that audience, and you caught me living my passion and my purpose. And I feel that when we connect with that, our purpose and our passion, then it flows effortlessly. It's almost not even work, even though we might get paid for it. And I wish that for everything. I was happy that happened at a very early age in my career, I should say. Back in the 90s, probably started speaking. Some people will tell you I was speaking ever since I was in my mother's womb. But I've learned to listen too. But you know what? I'm just so fortunate. I've had my own business now for over 20 years. And a lot of my motivational speaking and coaching absolutely came as a result of some people might say a tragedy. I'm going to say a blessing in disguise, as I say, any type of adversity is. But whereas my life was all about movement for the first 15 years of my life, I basically awakened to paralysis back in 1985 as I was a sophomore in high school. I had a very rare stroke in my spinal cord. It's actually an AVM, an arterial venous malformation. Congenital, I was born with it, could have gone my whole life without anything happening, but it was almost like a sleeping volcano in my spine that just erupted with no accident, no injury, no trauma. So it left me a paraplegic from about my belly button down to my toes, no movement, weird sensation, not normal sensation. And coming up on 35 years now, just celebrated my 50th birthday. So 35 years of living life from a wheelchair. But as you well know, which the great outdoors has absolutely contributed to, I'm not confined to this chair at all. I actually, I'm grateful for it because it's taken me around to so many experiences, but every opportunity, including the ocean, including a swimming pool, including my bed, which a lot of it, do you sleep in your chair? I mean, I get out of my chair whenever I can to experience life, but it also helps me to experience life. So I'm one of those people, Michael, who I'm blessed by not necessarily what's been taken from my life, but what it is that I have in my life. And that also includes some adversity that I've experienced in my life. So I've tried to take every event, every experience, every choice that I've made in my life that has brought me up to you doing what I love most and talking to people on the #1 podcast in the world. So why would I change anything? This was wonderful. So that day at St. Catherine's, I remember, we had a mixed group. We had students, we had parents, we had everyone. And I just really love to help people build bridges and help them get from where they are today to where they want to be. And knowing full well that, and I'm absolutely a shining example of it, of anything being possible in this world.
No, that's beautiful. And it's true. Everyone has adversity in some way, shape, or form. it forms who we become, but we can't always let it define us, right? And it's, I think some people like to dwell on the things that have happened to them, and it causes this lifetime of hurt. And you kind of have to move on from it and realize this is a part of what made me who I am today. And you should, I don't want to say celebrate it, but almost celebrate it in the sense of saying, it made me who I am, and I can't change what occurred in the past, but at least I can move forward acknowledging what occurred and make a better life because of it. Or
It's about Michael, it's about being in the moment as much as possible. And the past, I say if we're dwelling on something, normally we're stuck in the past. I love to reflect on the past. There are a lot of moments in which I didn't think something was possible, but yet it became possible. So if I feel somewhat stuck in the moment, I just reflect. I don't dwell. I reflect on those moments where maybe I did feel stuck, but I got through it and said, okay, if this is possible, anything is possible. And then also with the future, I mean, I'm all for planning. I'm all for having and launching powerful intentions into the future, but really we have no control over that. And
no,
that's when we get anxious, when we build anxiety and so forth. We're too far in the future. So if you find yourself dwelling on something and kind of stuck, normally we're in the past. If you find yourself too anxious about something, it's about the future, neither of which, I mean, both are important, but neither of which we have important. What's important is our moments, which we're sharing right now, and to be fully present as we can in each and every moment.
right. That's very true. Oh, that's, your life coach 101 right there, right? This is,
That's 101. I make that stuff up.
yeah.
I just try to live it. I
Um,
realize more than ever,
and you do,
whether
you exude it. I have to say, like it's been about a decade that I've known you, right? And it- it's always been that way, and you always do live that. So it's not some hokey saying that you just tell the masses and then you go live a different way. This is truly how you live. And it's beautiful. It really is, and it's a testament to positivity.
well, I appreciate, but and again, we're just mere reflections of one another, brother. It just really, it's a matter of making a choice, and I think I've spent so much time because I have to walk my talk or wheel my talk. My wife told me a long time ago. She said, "You know what? If you're ever giving a presentation to someone, make sure you keep one ear open to yourself, um, and obviously one ear open to your audience and everything. You have to make sure that you're living this." And I know through my own life experiences and my own trials and tribulations is that, oh yeah, I've spent a lot of time in that dark past, and I've spent a lot of time in that like unknown future, and realizing that, wow, you know what, I've missed out on some magical moments. So try to catch myself now. I am a human being born to make mistakes.
Right.
Um, but I'm trying to learn from them as quickly as possible as we move along.
Yeah, and that's the best thing to do. And so let's bring. How did you? Obviously, we kind of are closely associated because of the group of guys that we're friends with. And let's take it back to childhood. Prior to your spinal cord injury, were you always called to the ocean, or was it something that happened as an adult?
No, I ever since I was a little kid.
Yeah.
My father, who passed away in 1994, when I was just 24 years old, my father was a lifeguard growing up. My father loved the ocean, and I spent a lot of time there. So when we were growing up before paralysis, is that every single summer we'd pack up two cars and drive down from northern New Jersey down to Lavallette, New Jersey, where we rented the same house, which was on the bay side. We had a lagoon in the back, and Dad had his sunfish sailboat on the roof of his car. And we had all the belly boards and everything packed up into Mom's car. And just drove down there. And what I loved about it is just, I loved the bay, and I loved going in there and crabbing and fishing and doing all that stuff. But it was the other side of the ocean that was calling me, and was the waves and just getting in there and just losing yourself. I remember with my brother and my father and my mother, hours upon hours. I mean, unless you really had to go to the bathroom. I mean, you were doing it in there. You went, you were doing it, there, but you came out because you were hungry or like you were in the sun too long. But
Yeah.
I just remember hours of spending in there, being tossed around, just like having sand where like you never would ever imagine, and just dumping that sand. And it was like rinse and repeat every single day. And it was such a simple life. And whenever we experienced too much sun, we would just walk basically across the street to the Ocean Hut surf shop. and just cool off, take some of that sex wax and just like smell it all day long. And then just sit on the ground and they wouldn't care, open up some of the surfer magazines and then look around and doing all that. And that's, you know what, I never use this word, Michael. And, but it's tough not to. And I understand why is that I never got up on a surfboard is that it was always something, okay, next summer I'm going to do this. And again, I was just a Benny. So we only went down 2 or 3 weeks. So it wasn't like I had all summer down there. But I mean, I loved being on my belly board and riding waves that way. I loved body surfing. It was always something like, I want to get up on that surfboard. I wanted to get to Hawaii. I wanted to surf Pipeline. And I just never made it happen. And it's like, I keep asking myself why. And I guess there was just that part of me that said, you know, you're gonna be down here. You're coming down here every summer, and you were 15, and okay, yeah, you could have done it like 5 years before that and everything. But what's interesting, what I find to be fascinating is that on that belly board, how I used to ride waves is how I do adaptive surfing now on my stomach and doing everything that a surfer would be, but just like on my stomach, not standing up on the board. So I can't even say I've come full circle. Like I've just remained on the circle with regards to how I surf. But I love the ocean and I want to live closer to it. I'm not going to be up in northern New Jersey my entire life. I don't want to just be down there during vacations or warmer weather. Even during these times now when it's getting colder out, just love it. But there's a mystery, there's an unknown, there's a beauty, there's peace. There's so much that the ocean resonates to me and through me each and every day. And I've realized too is just how much our lives, Michael, are just like that ocean, peaks and valleys, one wave after another, and realizing that there's always another wave waiting for us. There's always another opportunity in life that's waiting for us. And you know what? Now with the experiences of having ridden some waves is that we can choose to ride them differently moving forward. So there's just so much that I'm grateful for the ocean. And you'll never catch me, Michael, living in the middle of this country. And God bless all the people who love to do that and love the lakes or love the desert and stuff and don't want to be. No, I will travel. I will go and speak there and everything, but I better have that return ticket home because I have to be close to the ocean. I got to be on the coast somewhere.
Yeah, it's funny, right? You when you see the ocean, and you know, obviously similar to you, I never went to the Jersey Shore. True story. And I'm from New Jersey, born and raised. Never went to the Jersey Shore until I think senior year in high school. Bob, a friend of ours, took me for the first time, and we always went to New England. So my family's from Cape Cod, and we had a family house in Rhode Island that we would go to. So we were always at the beach, just never the Jersey Shore. But it was the same thing. Every year it really calls to you and you just could sit there for hours. At least I could, like, watch the sunset and the sunrise over the ocean and just lay in the water and float and be tossed around for hours on end, and really get lost because you feel like you're this piece of eternity, almost like you blend into the horizon even though you're this tiny little speck in the ocean. It's just you become a part of it. And
Right. Great way of putting it.
yeah,
Really great way of putting it.
and I love this time of year as well down the shore. And it's you know, I've definitely, as of now, of course, have a car, and you know, a little bit older than that, going down on my own, and you know, bring the wife sometimes meet, you know, friends or my brother down there, and you know, this is perfect time of year to go surfing and the perfect time of year to go fishing, and it's quiet. And you get down the shore hopefully in a heck of a lot less time than you would in the middle of the summer down the Parkway.
There was one time I was just sharing the other night with my family is that I think it was 3 years ago. I had a speaking engagement, I want to say towards the end of November down in Cape May. And they put me up like in a hotel overnight. And I just remember like right on the ocean. And I just remember being there and it was so cold. But I remember having my window cracked
Yeah.
because I just wanted to smell the ocean. I wanted to hear it. It was probably one of the most peaceful nights. I mean, I had the blankets and everything on top of me, but one of the most peaceful nights sleep I ever had. And I made a promise to myself is that, you know, and it's not just going to be a vacation. I will have like a permanent home, at least for a period of time,
Mhm.
that's right there, and I'll hear it, and it won't be something that's playing through my iPhone in terms of ocean waves. It will be the real deal
Yeah.
of the Atlantic Ocean that's coming through my ears and putting me to sleep and waking me up. And I look forward to that.
You put it on the dream board and make it a reality. That's awesome.
You got it. It's on there. It's on there.
So your last time you went to the beach, you said 15 thereabouts, right? You
Yeah.
were down the shore. You said you wanted to maybe go to Hawaii, stand up on that board. Obviously, what happened to you happened. And how long before you got back in the water, the ocean, we'll say, not the pool?
Wow. So that's a great question because there was adaptive surfing. There was absolutely adaptive surfing, and people were doing it. I had never heard of it. I was approached and about wheelchair basketball. I was approached about wheelchair tennis, doing road races, doing all different things. But the ocean was something that was almost like it was always there, but it got put on hold. And my family was great. So when this happened to me, they just our vacation stopped going to the Jersey Shore. They didn't think it was fair to me. They didn't think that like in terms of accessibility, and we didn't talk about people back in the 80s and stuff, or even the 90s, like going onto the beach and accessing it. But so it was almost like not accessible, not going to go there. So that was determined. Life took me in all different other directions. So wow, is that oof, when did it come back into my life? I remember probably maybe late 90s is that I was living actually down in Miami, Florida. It wasn't the Jersey Shore.
Okay.
I'd moved down to Miami, Florida shortly after my father had passed away because he always wanted me to explore opportunities down there because there's a lot of cutting edge research that's going on down in Miami. And so I remember going on to beaches that were much flatter and obviously in Florida, it's the handicap capital of the world. So there was a little bit more access down there. And so that's where like I started like not necessarily getting into the ocean, but getting onto the beach and reacclimating myself. But wow, it wasn't until, was it 7, 8 years ago, maybe that, yeah, really, okay, you can get back in the ocean now, and you can actually surf and get on a board and do various things. So it just took a very long time. And it's interesting because, you know, and I wish, wow, if adaptive surfing or access to the beach was there at an early age, I could have shared that with my family and said, hey, listen, we can still go. Maybe we can't stay in the same house, but we can still get down there and everything. But you know, you didn't see back then. So it wasn't like something that was being done and I just avoided because maybe it hurt too much or something. But let me do this. I got the sun coming all over the place now. Oh, where it's coming? It's coming all different trees. I'm like in like a hold on. Let me do this a little bit. Oh, that might be a little bit better. There we go. That should be a little bit better.
Yeah, yeah,
Man, I'm sorry about that.
yeah. It's all right.
Mother Nature, maybe that's Mother Nature just saying, hey, you know what? We're going to create a lot of sun. You associate the sun with the beach and everything. We're going to like drop in on you. See, dropping in on your podcast right here. There's Mother Nature. If I get hit with a big wave here up in northern New Jersey and Verona, then really we got to take notice.
Oh, we've got problems. That's 2020 times 1,000.
So yeah, that's fascinating though to think about because I guess I hadn't until you asked that question really put it in a time frame is that from 1985 to 2013.
13.
I don't even know how many years that is. Is that like I would always say I love the ocean. I was always say this, but it was almost like and life took me all different places. I've traveled around the world twice. I've seen the Aegean Sea. I've seen beautiful oceans and but well, it's not the ocean though. You got me thinking though. Is that back in 1999, I swam in the Dead Sea in Israel.
Oh,
So that was an experience. No waves there.
right.
Wasn't doing any surfing there. Was looking more towards the healing, but fascinating, fascinating body of water, and that's been known to heal a lot of people. So
We have
yeah,
some of the
water
water
is a
upstairs.
part of life.
But when we went out with Team Moonlander and we took you out surfing, I think it was your second time going out with them. My brother put me on the group text, and Um, Even then, I mean, this is, only 7 years ago. Getting you on the beach was not an easy task. I mean, it's not something that your wife and your kids would have been able to assist you with, right? It
Right.
really took a handful of adult males to help lift you up and over the sand dunes and these like stairs that were leading to the beach. And it it's kind of like a selfish thing, right? Like, as just humanity, you think about yourself, and it's nothing that's necessarily wrong with that, because your scope of influence, I guess, is diminished by your surroundings and who you surround yourself with. Um, but I thought it was strange, and it was difficult to do that enough for you, right? And then when we were doing Access Asbury, was that 2 years ago now? And seeing just the great work that the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation was doing at making these beaches accessible, it's like they really should be doing this everywhere. Like, it's not
Yeah.
just the one beach.
Yeah, and that's one of our plans, Michael. I mean, that's what we want to do. I'm an ambassador for the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation, and they focus on today's care and tomorrow's cure. So they're looking at the here and now and quality of life, but also looking towards the future and hoping to bring about. I mean, they create funding for organizations that are trying to bring about different cures and more effective treatments for people living with paralysis. But one of those initiatives, as you mentioned, Access Asbury. And that just shows you from when Team Moonlander first got into the ocean, where technology has come too. There's a product now, and one of the last products, I mean, it's now in my garage and everything, is water wheels,
Right.
created by a great company called Access Rec. And now they're doing this all over the world and providing these beach chairs that actually have flotation devices on the armrests, so people can actually go into the water and just float in the water if they don't want to get out of the chair or do adaptive surfing or canoeing, whatever it is that they want to do. So it's just amazing, because we had with Team Moonlander, we have one of the best engineers in the world, Mike Zacchelli, Captain Mike. And Mike put together this PVC pipe and everything, which was great. And what's funny is that, and I know we'll get to Ride the Wave in the movie and everything, but you see that in the beginning of the film when you guys first started getting me on it, and my legs were dangling off, but we still got onto the beach, and it was still easier
Yeah.
than like having to carry me in my wheelchair and everything. But then at the end of the movie, you see me getting in with water wheels and how much easier it is. And I think that's just an example of one of these things in life, thanks to technology, that we see. I mean, I still marvel. I'll digress for a minute, because like right behind me, I don't even know if you can see it up there based on the thing. There's a picture up there of my father. And my father played football, and in a day, like leather helmets with no face mask.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, it's like, I remember, imagine being at that board meeting and saying, "Hey guys, why don't we take like a stronger substance rather than leather?" And then he didn't put a face mask on the
Right.
front. Oh yeah, my dad broke his nose like in like every game his senior year playing at Bloomfield High School in a different spot. And I'm just like, this is just like brilliant how far we've come. And you say, why didn't you think about that? I mean, you could say that about anything, the car, an airplane, but we're talking about getting on the beach. And it's just, all I know is just I'm thankful, because I know with regards to paralysis is that, and I just shared this with the family. I speak to a lot of families of who have a loved one or someone who's spinal cord injured or paralyzed or has some type of disability. And I looked at them because they had someone who's been paralyzed now for 15 months. And I said, listen, I wish I could go back and make like it never happened. But, there's never a better time to be paralyzed. If you have to be paralyzed, then to be paralyzed now. And they kind of like looked at me and I said, well, based on the quality of life that you can still have, including getting back into the ocean, sitting on the deck, having a full experience at the beach now, if that's what you want to do, but also where research is in terms of technology and what they're able to do inside one's spinal cord, that like people are regaining movement who had never had movement before, thanks to like an implant, an epidural stimulator that's sitting on like the spinal cord, that's kind of like acting as like a little bit of a robotic function for you. So it's an exciting time to be alive. I used that word before in terms of regret. I don't have really any regrets. And
Good.
knowing full well that it could be that, kid who's like at an early age, who's paralyzed now, who, its family goes down to the Jersey Shore. And now they say, hey, we can go to Asbury Park, or we can go here and have all those experiences that I didn't have. Man, that means the world to me, knowing full well that there's more to be had at a younger age or even an older age in society right now. No regrets from that. Again, I'm thankful for it being in place right now, and I can uh, enjoy it and watch others enjoy it.
Well, you brought up a good point, right? So I work in technology. That's my background, and I have of course, an education background in recreation and tourism, and I always look at ways to solve problems using technology. And we really are at this point now where we can talk about AI and ML and everything like that, and what that's going to do in the near future and the distant future. But in its present form, we're able to solve so many more problems by using technology, and do so inexpensively. Like, I'm sure a lot of these things existed a decade ago or even 20 years ago, but you couldn't afford them as an
Mhm.
everyday citizen. You had to be a multimillionaire to be able to afford these things. And the great equalizer is technology caught up to us, and now we can 3D print things. We know we can use the internet to get designs for building chairs with PVC, like Engineer Mike. And it really is a beautiful thing that we can do that. And I'm hopeful that this young kid I was speaking to at Access Asbury was saying to me, I'm hopeful in the next 10 years, with the way that technology is progressing, that there is a shot that they'll be able to cure this for
Yeah.
me.
Well, yeah, and this is the interesting thing, and this is where it gets a little tedious. And I'm just speaking about paralysis and spinal cord injury. Is that while we group everyone together, there are no two MRIs alike.
Yeah,
So while someone could have an injury or an accident or even an illness that I had at the same exact level of the spinal cord, what it is that they feel, experience, any type of movement, spasms,
right,
everything is different. So I can't necessarily focus on a cure for paralysis. But all I know is that, and I told a kid the other day who actually was paralyzed at the Jersey Shore. Actually, a lifeguard who dove into a wave, and we were having a conversation about this, and he's actually regained movement. I mean, he's in like his 15th, 16th month of being paralyzed. He's regained movement, didn't really sever the cord totally. And so we're talking about some of these treatments that are out there right now.
wow,
And he asked me if I'm excited about it. I'm like, I'm excited about it. And I want you to go to before me. I was like, you got movement coming on now. If you get that finish line is a little bit closer
yeah,
for you than it is for me. I'm cool, but I'm right behind you. But let's just get you going back up on your feet, and I'll follow, and hopefully that'll happen as well. So, but it's amazing. It's amazing how far we've come. I know in my 35 years of being paralyzed with regards to where research is and where it was, and I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful for myself. I'm still hoping that like my bones are strong enough to support me, because being 50 now and being paralyzed for 35 years is that there's my bones aren't that strong. So I'm wondering if my legs can support me and everything, but I'm thinking more of that next generation.
yeah,
Uh, that maybe doesn't have to live too much of their lives from a wheelchair. But yet, I mean, injuries and accidents and spinal cord injury still going to occur. There's still going to be a need for wheelchairs and so forth. Let's just hope it's not for that long.
yeah. No, I like that.
Yeah.
Hope and
Hope.
work towards a better future.
Yep.
Really. So let's pivot a little bit. We were talking a little bit about, where we were before and last time in the water. Now, your first time getting in the water with Mike and Robbie and a couple of the guys, what was that like for you? Do you remember that feeling?
Yeah. What's funny, Mike and I, we joke about it. I don't really joke with Robbie too much about it. So we should let everyone know is that like Mike's an engineer. He actually makes surfboards himself, but he works in a township as a town uh, engineer, town manager. So he's that guy you want when you're like caught in a foxhole and everything.
Yes.
He's going to help you figure things out. So what was interesting is that Mike had sent me, I think this was on Facebook Messenger. So he was messaging myself and Robbie at the same time. And all of a sudden, like, I just hear these things that Robbie's saying. Robbie has like a helmet on me. Robbie has like all this padding on me, like I'm going to be the Michelin man. And all of a sudden, I'm just thinking like, no, I don't want this because I can't move around. I mean, I take pride in having the use of my arms and being free and everything. I'm all for taking necessary precautions, but I pride myself, Michael, and a lot of people should know who are listening to this, is that even though I'm paralyzed and I have no movement in my legs, my upper body's fine. And I've realized is that like swimming, I might not be able to kick, but you know, my body is wanting to float. And the faster that I go with my arms, the more my legs want to float. So I'm fine. I'm fine in the ocean. I'm fine in a body of water, but yet, yeah, definitely need help getting in and out of the ocean, but also retrieving my board. Anyway, so what was interesting is that like Mike would have little sidebar conversations with me and say, no, it's okay, Scott, we're not going to have all that. And he's telling Robbie, yeah, we're going to be perfectly safe and do all that. So I was just wondering that first time we went in the ocean, and I was just like, okay, how are they going to have me do this?
Yeah.
It was interesting is that we had a wetsuit. There was a wetsuit that was made for me, and that was probably one of the biggest challenges, getting in a wetsuit, being paralyzed and everything. And I, to this day, I mean, sometimes it would take me on upwards to like a half an hour just to get in it, but it was well worth it. So to get in that ocean, it was so intriguing. Like, and there was part of me that was scared, and I loved it
Yeah.
because it was like any other time that I've gone into the ocean. And this is a respect for Mother Ocean, is that she can have her way with you whenever she wants.
Yeah.
And so you got to respect her. And I just remember getting in there though, and feeling like that kid, that teenager, and that kid growing up on the Jersey Shore again, for all those beautiful things, the sand in my eye, the sun reflecting on the ocean, getting that water in your mouth, and like nothing on some levels had changed yet. In so many other ways that things had changed. But there was such peace of mind, and I love it because the guys asked me, how can we best help you? How can we do this? And so that first day was awesome, but then all of a sudden it just kind of like triggered so many thoughts, and like, ooh, how can we make the board even better so Scott can like get on it a little bit easier? How can we do it so like and shape boards moving forward so they're not so like top heavy where Scott's going to go in? How can we put handles on the side so Scott can like hold and like maneuver the board or climb up where he needs to? So there was a lot of learning on the fly that was taking place, but there was also, as you well know, Michael, probably within like a first couple sessions that we had, all of a sudden we're like, okay, where are we going next?
Yeah.
And so we have sights set on like La Jolla, California. I mean, there's adaptive surfing competitions that's out there. And we're like, let's go. Let's
Yeah.
make this happen. And we watched it and we're like, yeah, I think we can win this, and we can do this. And so again, like anything, almost like plans that I had before I was paralyzed, they were upended. So plans to head out to La Jolla, and there was practice, and there was a lot of time and effort put into. They got dismantled as well, and it's part of the journey. It's part of the journey, and again, no regrets, and not saying, well, would have, should have, could have. I know Robbie to this day, unfortunately, still feels a little bad about my incident, which I don't know if you were going to get into that in
Yeah.
terms of when
Yeah. Well,
I
we
broke.
can do something now. No, please. We brought up. I think it's important to know like that it's a journey, right? Everything's not linear, so to speak. It's like even in myself, like I was injured surfing, a good number of years ago, and I was very timid getting back in the water, and I still to some extent am. You have this mental block almost that makes you like not want to do it. Now,
Yeah, well,
just
I would
these
say caution. I don't know if not wanting to do it. Well, I guess for some people would be, but like really,
caution over abundance. Yeah,
that's, but that's, and that makes total sense. Even with the ocean, I mean, that should make sense in anything in life. Is that if you had a little challenge in an area of your life, is that like proceed with a little caution. That's what life's all about. It's when you go into something reckless
yeah,
and then you get hurt, and then you go into it reckless again. I mean, you're just kind of like asking for a bigger challenge. But no, I guess what we were talking about is that wow, it's been about 4 years now, I would say. Day before Father's Day, So real thick wetsuits on, ocean still very cold. It was a weird day out there because the waves were, I mean, not perfectly formed. They were kind of rolling in one after the other, and even on top of each other. And that's actually what happened to me when I went out there. Is it was the first wave that I caught of the season, and I just remember riding it. It was almost overtaken by another wave, and it had knocked me off the board, which it had before, and I've wiped out before. But based on the way the waves were, is that it was like a washing machine or a dryer. I mean, I just two or three times head over heels, and then so what ends up happening, just to explain to your viewers, your listeners, is that Robbie, who's our coach, would usually kind of pitch me into a wave. So rather than me having to get real tired and paddle into a wave, is that he would pitch me, would get me into the wave. Then he'd let go. I mean, there would be no one on that wave with me. So then I would take that wave as far as possible and then either get off of the wave or I would wipe out sometimes. And then what we didn't want to do, because as I mentioned before, is that my legs are somewhat weaker. They've atrophied and the bones are brittle. I didn't want to have a leash cord attached to my ankle. I didn't want that tug of any type of weight on there. So we didn't have one of those. So the team would go and retrieve my board. So on this day, when I went head over heels, board went, and I would usually kind of like float to the top, which I did, and kind of like collect my legs. And I just remember bringing my left leg over here and then seeing my right leg at an angle that I had never seen before. And it scared me. And when I tell you, Michael, is that even being paralyzed at that time, what was it, 31 years, is that I've always felt connected, even though upper body, lower body, meant always one body here. I felt disconnected from my body, seeing my leg at that angle, and it scared me. I ended up breaking my femur in 6 different spots, and it was challenging. It was challenging, but that absolutely put a whole new, I want to say, new and elevated respect for the ocean, because I was like, wow, she took, like in that moment, she took my passion.
Yeah.
She took part of my purpose in terms of getting in the ocean, showing others how to adaptive surf. And a little angry with her. I was upset with her, but at some point I knew that I would have to make peace with her. So few years later, my legs like was all healed, and it's healed now. I have a titanium rod in there. Is that got back into that ocean at the same place I wanted to go back to the scene of the crime.
Yeah.
Um, and we went back there, and I just wasn't about surfing again,
Yeah.
but it was about getting on that board and paddling out past where the waves were breaking and just being in there and experiencing all the beauty. Said a few things in terms of some nice things in terms of how much I love you, Mother Ocean. Please don't do that to me
Right.
again. Um, but what's interesting, when I broke my leg, I think it was a few days later, I heard about Kelly Slater, who was probably the best surfer ever in the world.
Yeah.
He broke his foot on a wave that was probably smaller than mine, the way he described it. And it was just like, I don't care if you're the strongest athlete in the world, the most resilient, whatever it may be, is that, we are human beings, and we are going to bend, and we are going to break, and we're going to do different things. But, it's a matter of not necessarily riding it in, but it's a matter of getting back on that wave again, and just riding it wherever it may take you, wherever it may take you.
Well, it's interesting to me in that story is you you time in and time out you're experiencing. You were talking about the wave being in kind of like an allegory for life or some sort of tale of life. How you have these pitches and rises and falls or waves, and you experience a setback, and you still kind of rose above it and you got back in the water after a few years. It did take you a few years. And I know everyone's been asking you and everyone in the group constantly, I don't want to say nagging you, but, gently trying to nudge you to do it again. It's kind of trying to get you back on the horse after an injury. Right. And
Yeah.
it's important to do it. And I think it's important to also just do it in your own time and understand that like you're trying to grasp that passion for the water again before you actually are ready to ride that wave one more time.
Right. I think there was a time too where I had shared with someone, might have even been in an interview or something, where I said, I don't think I'm going to be surfing again. And my son was next to me, who's 15 years old, Ray, and he had said to me, he goes, you know what, Dad, I don't know if you want to say that. And I was like, well, that's kind of the way I feel. He's like, but what happens that day when you walk again?
Yeah.
Will you want to get on that surfboard? I was like, touche, out of the mouth of babes. I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm not going to close that door totally. But no, constantly still being asked, and I love it. I don't want anyone to keep asking me, and even the team. The team later on this month and is going to what is it, American Dream,
Yes.
where yep, there's an indoor surf park, and I got the invitation. Hey, you want to go? And I was just like, no. I was like, I'm not going to be surfing. I don't care if it's a wave out in the ocean. It turns the same way. And from what I found out, there's a cement bottom there. And again, I don't want anyone realizing that. I don't make decisions based in fear. So it's not like I'm afraid. I'm joking about this now, but I never want to make a decision based in fear. I'm just in a place and I'm fine with it in terms of not surfing now,
Right.
but yet, and realizing, and one of the reasons is, you know, surfer, adaptive surfer. Yes, it's one of my titles in life, but father, husband, businessman, these are stronger titles in my life.
Yeah.
And I realized that in that moment that I broke my leg, I could have broken my arm. I could have broken a hand. I could have broken my neck. Honestly, and I don't want to like really exaggerate this, but been plenty of people who have died
Yeah.
while surfing. And so knowing full well that that could have happened very easily the way I tossed and turned in that ocean, um, I realized that I'm very thankful to come away. Even my wife, when I first broke my leg, my wife's a physical therapist. So she met me at St. Barnabas Hospital, and I was showing her like a little bit like what had happened. And she goes, well, the good news is that, you know, it's in this area of your leg. So it's not like your knee or anything where your leg's going to have to be held out straight, which would really impact your ability to drive, impact your ability to go into like different places with your leg having to be out straight. So it's just interesting how, you know, for as traumatic as it was and as debilitating as it was, it could have been so much more and affected my life so much more.
No, you're
So
right.
I'm
You
just,
have this hierarchy of priorities. And I think I had this conversation with Robbie a little bit last year. We were talking about doing some coaching. And I said, you know, he said, how long have you been surfing? And I said, uh, 20 years, I think. He goes, well, how would you describe yourself? And I'm like, I'd still consider myself a beginner surfer. And he's like, well, how could that possibly be? And I said, well, I have priorities other than surfing. And
I,
living in North Jersey, it's, you know, not always easy to get down to the shore, especially when you have other things going on. And I'm married, and you know, I'm an avid snowboarder. I love fly fishing, and I have other things that I want to do. And surfing for me, and any sport really in the outdoor world, has always been about the brotherhood or the friendships that, and the, you know, sharing something with people. And you know, I'll go anytime my brother reaches out to me, or anytime anyone reaches out to me and say, hey, do you want to go? And if I'm free, absolutely, I'm down. But I'd rather go down to the local stream and get an hour in, and then have to come home and mow the lawn or whatever it is my adult, you know, needs are. So it's understandable to an effect, exactly what you're saying, when you can potentially injure yourself and take yourself away from those other obligations and those other things that are in your hierarchy of importance. That's saying a lot about you as a person, and I can appreciate that wholeheartedly. I think some people, you know, they bust my chops for that, but it's unfortunately a side effect of being a human and being in the modern world, right? We
yeah,
have to, if you get injured and you're taken away from something, you know, that's a big deal.
yeah, you know, it's just being real. I
Yeah.
mean, even and it's in the film, is that when I went back out in the ocean like a few years later, and as Captain Mike's pushing me in the water wheels chair, is that Robbie's walking alongside of us. He's like, "So you want to ride a wave today?" I was like, "No, no, thank you, Mike. No, thank you, Robbie. I'm okay. I'm good." He's like, "Okay." And so, no, it's great. But you know what? I can't wait to be there at this surf park at the American Dream up here in northern New Jersey. And I can't wait to see all those guys having a blast, being zany, hopefully being safe, and just being in that energy. That's one of the things that like I probably miss more than anything. But yet when pandemic's over and we're all out surfing again and everything, I'd probably, which I did for one of the best day
Yeah.
foundation events, is just got on the board, went out beyond where the waves were breaking. And as the kids came out, just coaching them and cheering them on and doing different things.
Yeah.
I'd like to do more of that because, and that's part of the brotherhood, the sisterhood, whatever you want to say, because we've had guys and gals who have been out there surfing with me, is that just all the exchanges that take place and the connections. I there's definitely like a reality TV show that should absolutely have been recorded or should can be recorded. And so those are probably some of the experiences that I miss. Yeah, in terms of catching that barrel and doing that. Yes, I miss those. I've had those though, but it's those bonds and those relationships that you form out there, and that are just priceless and everything. So have to want to get back in the ocean for those more so than just the actual surfing element.
Yeah. That's very well put. So, let's jump in. We kind of touched upon Ride the Wave a little bit. I've definitely been a huge advocate of the film. I was lucky enough to premiere it with you, and when you had a friends and family event, and I absolutely loved it. And it's not just because I know you, and it's not because I know the people that are in it and the scenes that I've lived, um, but it really tells a great story about life. It's not just about you. It could be anyone's story about life. And like you said, the turmoil, or so to speak, that we would say, that we experience, and moving on from it, and love, life, family, and friends, of course. So tell us a little bit about Ride the Wave. How did it all come together?
Well, that was you, wasn't it?
Oh, my brother.
That was your brother. That's right. I always get the hackers confused. So your brother was actually talking with the filmmakers, who had just gotten done with another project and said, "Listen, we're building this board for our friend Scott, and you should check it out." And I think they had the original intent of saying, "Ooh, we can do like a documentary about adaptive surfing." And I think it was your brother who said, and I think you should Google Scott's name first. And they realized a lot of what I had done in my life with my career, traveling, you name it, and said, wow, this movie is so much more than just surfing or adaptive surfing. So I would say it's about 25% about adaptive surfing and surfing. But one of the things when they approached me, the filmmakers, Nolte Films, I said to them, I'm honored, I'm touched, but I really need this to be done in the way that my presentations are, where obviously it's my life and I'm going to share my stories that way, but I need to have every single person who watches this kind of travel vicariously through me, but they're plugging in their own lives and they're saying, wow, I might not be paralyzed, but I remember times where I experienced adversity, or I remember where there was a challenge in front of me, or I remember when I lost a loved one, or when I got married, or kids, or parenting. There's so many elements in there I think people can connect to, in which they do in my presentations, and yet the centerpiece being my story. But as I like to share with anyone is that, it would be beautiful if we could put everybody's story up on that screen and share. And like we had a chance to watch it. Imagine if we had a chance to watch like everyone's movie, everyone's documentary, and learn a little bit more about them. I think we would behave a little bit better. I
Yeah.
think we would be a little bit kinder, a little bit gentler. We'd have more empathy in our lives. But that's a whole nother subject we can talk about. So I was just thrilled, and to know that, and when they came up with the title Ride the Wave, I was like, yeah, this is like the waves of life. We talked about the peaks and valleys, and that was one of the things too. When I had broken my leg, which they captured beautifully in the film, is that when they brought me back to the beach and I'm sitting there in my water wheels right as the ocean's coming up and I'm facing the ocean, they said, listen, we can get someone to bring a helicopter in here, or we can call the ambulance. What do you want? And I said, guys, I just need a moment. Can you just give me a moment? So I remember looking down at my leg and kind of like holding it with both hands just so it was straight. And then it was like, I always get a calling in my heart. I always say the mind thinks, the heart knows. So my heart said, look up. And I remember looking out and up, Mike, and I just remember seeing a beautiful wave, unlike any other wave I had seen before. And it was majestic and it was gorgeous and the sun was hitting it beautifully. And then I saw another wave forming beyond that, and then another wave. And it just like with all the the sadness and the shock, because I know that I did something serious to my leg, is like I had that moment reprieve. We
Right.
talked before about being in the moment, and the moment said, you know what? There is another wave that's waiting for us. And we can navigate that wave a little bit differently now, hopefully better, hopefully wiser. And it's always waiting for us, just like there's another opportunity to make a different choice or to go in a different direction. And that was a profound example for me. And I just think very symbolic of that movie, because uh, this is the thing too, is that when I broke my leg, I mean, we had guys who were recording and everything, but the film crew wasn't there. So I went to St. Barnabas Hospital. In all due respect to hospitals down at the Jersey Shore, I did not. I've heard some crazy stories, Michael. I did not want to be there. See, I think the theme of part of this today should be regret. I am going to use the word again. Is that I regret? I say this. It's like what was it? The Fawn saying, "I'm sorry." I regret driving myself. So I drove myself with a broken leg up to St. Barnabas Hospital. Um, I just told the guys, I said, because I said, just put me in my driver's seat, but I drive with my hands, so my leg's not affected, but not knowing that I might have been in shock or something like that. Anyway, I made it to the hospital and everything. But when I'm in the hospital bed, I get a call from one of the actual director, Kevin Nolte. And Kevin said to me, he goes, "Scott, are you okay? We heard about it." And he goes, um, "Do you need anything?" And I was like, "Yeah, I need something. I need you guys to get up here." He's like, "What?" I was like, "Bud, you can't make this up. This is great footage. You got to come and you got to capture me at the hospital. And I got surgery tomorrow." I was like, "This is all part of the journey." And it ended up like being, I think, one of the most compelling, because I broke down a few
It's touching.
times in that.
It was
Yeah.
absolutely touching. I teared up, and you know, you say what you will about men tearing or crying, but like it really seeing you, having known you for as long as I've known you, and seeing you as emotional as you were at that moment, and vulnerable, it really, it makes you think about your own fragility, and you know, empathetic to what it was you went through. And it really
Yeah.
was a defining piece of the story for Ride the Wave, I think.
I just, and again, I had shared this before. I just had like that tape of my life playing out of how much worse this could have been, and really not being able to fulfill those other titles in my life. And it was just sad. And so there was that part of me that said, you had no business being almost like 45 years old and brittle bones and doing this. Should have done it much earlier in life. And it's just interesting how you kind of like ride the wave, you ride the gamut of emotions, whatever it may be. But it's where I was in my life, and an experience. I have no problem saying this, along with every other experience. That was an experience I needed to have in my life. And it really made me go deeper, made me reflect on, yes, my own fragility, but it made me look deeper into my own life and my own like physicality and everything else. So no regrets, no regrets whatsoever.
Oh, that's really good, and I think, we've been blessed as individuals, and I think having known you, you're definitely one of those people who feels blessed of having a community of people to support you in what you've done. Um, but a lot of people don't have that. So, can we touch a little bit on access, and how do people get involved if they're interested in getting in the water here in New Jersey or elsewhere in the nation? If they want to just go swimming in the ocean, or even try adaptive surfing, what does that look like if you're aware?
Well, there are a lot of different organizations, and we don't necessarily get people surfing again through the Reeve Foundation, but there is Life Rolls On. There are Operation Beachhead, which gets people surfing. But with regards to which, I strongly suggest getting back into the water, because when we had our first beach day for the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation, I mean, we had people, and you saw it that day, who were crying
Yeah.
because they actually came there not even in a bathing suit, because they wanted to see other people have experiences. And all of a sudden they saw the experiences people were having. Let me go back to my truck, or let me go back to my van, and ended up having a bathing suit there. And then they ended up crying. So it's almost like, getting in that ocean first and seeing like how that feels with a disabled body, so to speak, as compared to a body that you had before. And so I would suggest, if anyone's out there, because we could guide you in the right direction, you go to christopherreeve.org, is that, and then you type in Asbury Park, and you'll see we have our own special page there. And so we're talking about not only beach access and helping people get onto the beach, whether it's getting on the beach, getting in the ocean, just having that overall beach experience, however that looks. If you
Yeah.
don't like the ocean, but just like looking at it, hey, we can get you on the beach. If you want to get in the water a little bit, you want to get in the beach far, I mean, there's all ways of accommodating you. And the lifeguard crew is great there at Asbury Park.
Yeah. They're
But we're looking to, through the Reeve Foundation, we're looking to get at least one beach. You think of all the beaches that are in each municipality on the coast. And we want to have at least one beach made fully accessible. Not every single beach, but one beach that people could look forward to. And it's something now we're talking with senators, we're talking with congressmen and women who are absolutely on board in making this happen. And we're excited about that. But we would love to see this like go around, have New Jersey be the first state to do this, go around and have every other coastal state do this, and have places around the world. And what we're trying to let people know is that people with disabilities consist of nearly 20% of our population. Think about that. Nearly 20% of our population has some type of disability. And I share with people, because we are getting older, thanks to medical advances and technology, which we discussed before, is that we're growing older. And as we grow older, unfortunately, the chances of us having some type of disability is going to increase.
yeah.
So I said, we got to prepare for this population, and the degrees of separation of it are dwindling with families and friends and colleagues and
Yeah.
everything. So, and so where I say, what, morally, it's the right thing to do to make something accessible. You could say legally, which I don't like to go down that route because then you drum up fear with people.
Right.
But I say to people, it's the business savvy thing to do. And this is where I love the discussions with Michael, because I said, collectively. Now, I know there are a lot of people with disabilities who are very poor, just as there are people in general who are very poor. There are people who are very wealthy too, and then there are people like in between. There is a tremendous spending power that people with disabilities collectively have. So if you make a beach accessible, I'll be sure to have your restaurant that's nearby wheelchair accessible beach. And that's part of what Access Asbury is all about, is that, yes, we're starting off at the ocean and trying to make the beach fully accessible, but we're going inland too, and we're wanting restaurants and hotels and everything else that one might want to experience in a city and in a town. We want to make those wheelchair accessible too, so people have free access and just can explore their purpose, explore their passions, and whatever anyone else is trying to do in navigating this thing called life.
Yeah. That's very well put. And I, I touched on it a little bit before. I'm a big fisherman, and I go to this one stream up in Sussex County, and they actually do have a handicapped accessible section of the stream, which I happened upon by accident. And it's got to be a heck of an access point to get to via car. But once you get there, sure enough, there was a nice little ramp down into the water, and it was nice to see, because I've never seen that on a fishing stream or fishing river before. And it there need to be more,
I,
right?
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. And it just takes, it could take somebody who has a disability who basically says, I want to fish, and being an advocate for him or herself. It could happen that way. It could happen as someone who is an avid fisherman who's on his or her feet, who just says, hey, you know what, I got this colleague at work who's in a chair and I want to invite him fishing. Let's make this successful. Whatever it is that I think whatever is going on, and we need to figure out ways to make things more accessible. And I don't think there's anyone out there, Michael, that's saying, let's not make this accessible. It all boils down to money.
Of
How
course.
much it's going to cost me? I mean, I know with businesses that we're working with now to make it accessible, and I talk about the tax incentives that you have and everything, and how you're going to recoup that. But that's the number one fear. And that's the number one challenge. So if we can get by that financial, and knowing full well that you're going to recoup whatever losses you feel,
Yeah.
because you're bringing in a whole new segment of the population in here now. Let's talk about, again, the business savvy reason to do this. And I love seeing, whether it be streams, whether it be lakes, whether it be fishing, I mean, whatever experience is out there, it could be modified to accommodate people with disabilities, all different types of disabilities.
No, and I agree with that, and it's something that should be on the mind of everybody. And it's at some point, like you said, we as we age, the likelihood of us becoming in some way, shape, or form disabled, and our mobility starts to decline. It, I'm gonna hopefully still continue to be able to do these things, but I know the places that I go, they're not right now aren't going to be accessible to me because I have to hike in like 3 miles upstream or downstream in order to get to them, and I won't be able to do that forever. So I would hope that in the near future, and I'll be a huge advocate on this, and I do talk about this frequently with friends and family. It's like be an advocate for this. Nothing bad can come out of this, only good, and it's only going to benefit society as a whole to bring the outdoors to people that can access it or may not be able to access it in the future. Yeah, bring it
Awesome.
to them. Yeah. Scott, we're at the end here of time, and I really appreciate the time you took today to meet with us and kind of discuss a little bit about your background and, of course, Ride the Wave. I highly suggest everyone watch it. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. And Scott, is there anything you wanted to end on?
No, I'm great. Thank you again for the opportunity and what you're doing, and love the open-mindedness and helping people with and without disabilities just experience this world and all its beauty and all its glory. So thank you, Michael, for doing what you're doing.
That's awesome. Thanks, Scott. I appreciate it. And have a good one. We'll talk soon, all right?
Take care, my friend.
All right, brother. Bye.
Bye.
All right, so that was Hacker Outdoors with Scott Chesney. If you liked what you heard, please give us a like or leave us a comment below. Please give me a follow on Instagram at Hacker Outdoors and on YouTube at Hacker Brothers Adventures. Scott Chesney can be found at scottchesney.com, as well as in the amazing film Ride the Wave, which of course we will link to in the show notes below. Thank you again for listening, and we look forward to having you with us again next week on the Hacker Outdoors podcast.